Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, change in strategy. Israel makes plans to take over the Gaza Strip and retrieve the hostages, fueled by the release of a shocking hostage video. Plus, analysis from CBN President Gordon Robertson about the so-called two-state solution, and analysis from Gil Hoffman from Honest Reporting about international media coverage. And in Tel Aviv, CBN Israel partnering with the congregation, bringing dignity and honor to those in need. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. A disturbing new video released by Hamas this week has drawn international outrage and condemnation, and it's resulted in a change of strategy from Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reportedly has decided to conquer the entire Gaza Strip. This comes amid calls from the Gulf states for Hamas to disarm and release the hostages. Here's the latest on these stories and more.
The propaganda video released by Hamas Saturday shows 24-year-old Evyatar David barely able to stand. He points out the multiple days he hasn't been fed and digs what he describes as his own grave.
You see them wasting away in a dungeon, but the Hamas monsters surrounding them have everything they need to eat. They are starving them the way the Nazis starved the Jews.
Former hostage Tal Shoham confirms David was held in the same tunnel complex where he was kept. He says terrorists enjoyed air conditioning, cable television, and plenty of food taken from aid deliveries.
Even when I was there, it's a severe vitamin C deficiency. It's really dangerous disease. And from looking on him now, I really think that he doesn't have more than few days to live.
The video comes days after similar footage of 21-year-old Ram Braslavsky, a German-Israeli captive who said he was suffering unbearable pain and could not stand or go to the bathroom. European leaders, including the European Union, France, and Germany, have condemned the clip, saying Hamas must disarm and have no role in Gaza's future. In Jerusalem, White House envoy Steve Witkoff met with hostage families, telling them President Trump wants to broker a ceasefire that will return all remaining hostages.
We feel that Mr. Witkoff is very much with the families. He feels us, he understands us, and he said that he's going back to Washington, where he will share these stories with the president himself. And he has no other mission that the president has prioritized more than getting a hostage deal for all the 50 hostages to come back.
Netanyahu urged the International Committee of the Red Cross to intervene with food and medical care. Johnny Moore, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, was on Fox News slamming the United Nations for complaining a lot about Israel aid to Gaza, but doing very little to help.
We don't want to argue with the United Nations, even though they don't pick up their own food, they don't deliver their food. By their own statistics, 90% of the and it's unbelievable. Like, to just say, oh, 95% of the trucks don't make it, but we have to do better. That's unacceptable. That's the United States money. That's European money.
Speaking to reporters Sunday, President Trump rejected claims of genocide in Gaza.
I don't think it's sad. Look, they're in a war. Some horrible things happened on October 7th, as you know. It was a horrible thing.
House Speaker Mike Johnson is in Israel. He met with Israel's Foreign Affairs Minister and visited the Western Wall.
Our prayer is that America will always stand with Israel and that we will we pray for the preservation and the peace of Jerusalem. That's what Scripture tells us to do.
Just miles from the Western Wall atop the Temple Mount, Israel's national security minister led Jewish worshippers on Tisha B'Av, commemorating the destruction of Jerusalem's holy temple.
And I say, from here of all places, we should send a message and make sure that today itself we conquer the whole Gaza Strip.
In Jerusalem, Paul Petit, CBN News.
Monday, Netanyahu announced he will convene his cabinet to give instruction to defeat Hamas and free the hostages.
We must continue to stand together and fight together to achieve the war goals we have set, all of them. The defeat of the enemy, the release of our hostages, and the assurance that Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel. Later this week, I will convene the cabinet to instruct the IDF on how to achieve these three goals, all of them, without exception.
Those 3 goals come in the midst of a battle between the U.S., Israel, and Hamas over who controls getting food to the people of Gaza. Friday, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee accompanied Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff to visit the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation to report on the U.S. Israeli-backed effort that's provided more than 100 million meals to hungry Gazans in the past 2 months.
The most important thing I saw was the efficiency of the GHF operation, which, by the way, Hamas hates. They said it was their second most important thing to get rid of if they're going to have a deal to let the hostages go. What does that tell you? It's working. And the people of Gaza actually get the food for free, and Hamas can't steal it.
Huckabee also talked to some of the people at the distribution site.
They don't want Hamas there anymore. They're sick of them. But they're also have no mood to have the PLO or Fatah or one of the other Palestinian organizations run Gaza in the future. So I think it's moving in the right direction. It's interesting that most of the Gulf states now recognize that, say that Hamas must disarm, let all the hostages go. Maybe we need to get that message to France, the UK, Canada, and Ireland.
All of those countries are calling for the establishment of a Palestinian state.
What I'd say to them is, you've given Hamas a wonderful gift. You've made it much easier for them to hold on to the hostages. Why don't you put the pressure on Hamas instead of Israel? Why don't you do something to help the hostages rather than hurt them? And why don't you do something to stand behind the country that was attacked rather than stand behind the people who did the attacking?
Huckabee's comments come after Hamas released video of emaciated Israeli hostage Eviatar David digging what he feared would be his own grave.
People want to see starvation in Gaza? Look at the hostages. That's who's being starved. And look how well-fed the Hamas members appear to be.
Huckabee also called out the international media for its reporting on what's happening inside Gaza.
The coverage has been deplorable. And the sad part is most of the information actually comes from Hamas. When they say that IDF soldiers are just mass shooting of innocent people coming to the feeding sites, that's a lie. They're the ones who are murdering people. They're murdering them who are getting food that they didn't have to pay for. And then they blame it on Israel. And the sad part is the international media just buys it hook, line, and sinker, reports it as truth, and they're perpetuating one of the biggest lies in all of history.
Given the challenges Israel is facing, Huckabee says people need to pray.
I hope people will recognize that Israel is in a very tough place. They need to pray that Israel can get this over with, but most importantly, pray that all the hostages come home. I think President Trump is on the right path when he says Hamas has to go. They have no future in Gaza, and I hope people will listen to the president.
Coming up, a conversation with CBN CEO and President Gordon Robertson about calls for a two-state solution and more. Hamas's use of media to capture the world's sympathy has created support from many nations who are now calling for a two-state solution. I spoke with CBN CEO and President Gordon Robertson about this development and Israel's response.
What's the response in the Israeli government to now an international push for a Palestinian state?
Well, Gordon, from the foreign minister, the prime minister, and other leaders are saying it would be a reward for Hamas and for terrorism. And the question some are asking here, Gordon, is where did this whole international push for a Palestinian state come from? And it's really kind of simple. First, Hamas steals much of the food and aid going into Gaza, creates a humanitarian crisis. Then Hamas blames Israel, and this puts pressure on world leaders. So they pressure Israel to declare not only a ceasefire, but also a Palestinian state. So this convinces Hamas their strategy's working, so they stop negotiating. And by the way, the accusations of famine began just weeks after October 7th, Gordon. Much of this is happening, and it's really the battle for truth here in Israel.
Well, I keep pointing out that the population of Gaza was hungry. There was a Stanford survey done right before August, before October 7th, and found that most Gazan, the majority of them, had food insecurity. They didn't know where their next meal was coming from, and that's under complete Hamas control. Why is that narrative not being spread? It just seems the news media seems to willingly want to be a propaganda arm for Hamas.
It really feels that way, Gordon. I mean, when you talk about the New York Times, and that picture not only was on the New York Times, but other publications throughout the world, and that narrative seems to continue to be followed.
Well, the Israeli public opinion and political opinion has been famously divided over the last 5 years. Is this Palestinian, the call now for a Palestinian state, is that uniting them?
It really is. I mean, the Knesset voted overwhelmingly just a few days ago to reject a Palestinian state. Polls show a majority of Israelis don't want a Palestinian state. World leaders like the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is saying you can't have a Palestinian state that includes Hamas, and the Palestinian Authority has to be reformed. When I talked to our good friend Itamar Marcus from the Palestinian Media Watch, he says the reality is different on the ground, and that in official media and in polls, the Palestinian people are simply just like Hamas. In a recent poll, 85% of Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, they oppose disarming Hamas. And then this year, on official media, and this is Palestinian Authority media, religious leaders said, quote, Allah count the Jews one by one, kill them all one by one, and don't leave even one. They also say Jews are like Satan in human form. So Marcus is making the point, creating a Palestinian state without Hamas is really a farce, since the people themselves are Hamas.
Well, Israel has been working hard to get aid into Gaza. What more can they do to either alleviate the humanitarian crisis created by Hamas or also fight this media narrative about starvation?
I would say, Gordon, back to your point, just keep fighting, getting out the truth. There's a military battlefield, but the media battlefield is maybe just as important. The military war may end, but the media war is going to continue. It's simply not a matter of lack of aid. There's the aid going into Gaza compares to the kind of aid going into Berlin during that airlift in 1948, nearly 2 million pounds of aid. So the question is, who are you going to believe? Israel, or maybe the New York Times, or Hamas, or the UN? Yesterday, we talked to Gil Hoffman of honestreporting.com. He says people need to decide if Israel is a pariah, if it's committing genocide, or did it save the world by fighting Islamist fundamental terror in Iran and in Gaza as well. And he says it's really important for Christians to be that watch this show to tell their friends the truth about Israel on their own social media.
Well, can you, right before the announcement of the Abraham Accord, there was a move in Israel to declare sovereignty over the West Bank. Is that now back on the table? Is that something we should anticipate happening in the near term?
I think so, Gordon. There's growing momentum. The Knesset passed a non-binding referendum to declare Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley that integral parts of Israel's biblical and national heritage, and they urged the government to extend sovereignty over these areas. And even the language is changing, and it's on Capitol Hill. Senator Tom Cotton introduced a bill to have the U.S. stop using the term West Bank in all federal contexts and use the biblical term Judea and Samaria. So there's a coordinated push on both sides of the Atlantic, and it marks a major shift in policy, and it recognizes the biblical roots of the land of Israel.
Still ahead, Gil Hoffman from Honest Reporting on Hamas's control of international media coverage.
As someone on the front lines of the information war, Gil Hoffman from Honest Reporting has spent years setting the record straight on how the media is covering Israel. He and I spoke about the recent debacle over the image of the sick child in the New York Times and how it affected the tide of public opinion. Gil Hoffman, you're the executive director of honestreporting.com, and I can tell with the news lately you've been very busy. First of all, there's been a picture in the front page of the New York Times. Tell us about that and why you wanted to focus on that at Honest Reporting.
Well, this picture, Chris, that was published on the cover of the New York Times and other media outlets around the world was very damaging to Israel's reputation at a very sensitive time. There are negotiations now to bring home our hostages and end the war. These hostages are starving. Whether the people of Gaza are starving is a question. The hostages of Israel are definitely starving in Hamas tunnels. And unfortunately, the attention was distracted by these photos. This one in particular that you can't turn a blind eye to of a child who looks emaciated and terrible. Well, it turns out that this picture was of a boy who was sick from a muscular disease that had nothing to do with this war, nothing to do with Israel, but Israel around the world was accused of purposely starving Gazan children, and the damage has been done. The decisions were made about recognizing a Palestinian state by France and England and in Canada. Even the President of the United States said you can't fake starvation. Well, maybe you can, Chris.
Is there a cause and effect? Do these pictures and media reporting cause diplomatic tsunami against Israel because so many countries are now calling for a Palestinian state?
And diplomatic tsunami is absolutely the right term, unfortunately, Chris. This led to a wave of criticism all around the world. That's false, based on dishonest reporting by media outlets like the New York Times. And on my way here into this interview, I checked with my team that monitors media from around the world. I said, well, the New York Times apology wasn't even really an apology. It praised its own reporters who made a mistake. Did other media outlets apologize at all? And they found none.
And I understand that the New York Times actually posted this on X account with 55 million, but the apology you call a non-apology was actually on a lesser account of maybe 88,000.
Correct. And their public relations account, as if anybody wants public relations from the New York Times. People have gone with the New York Times for news. And if you make a mistake of that kind of proportion that changed history, then you need to have an article on the front page of your paper, on the front page of your website, exactly the way you had that picture that caught people's attention around the world. And so the New York Times has prolonged this war. There are people who blamed Israel for prolonging the war, blamed Netanyahu for prolonging the war. Certainly people accurately blame Hamas for prolonging this war. And this time it's the media that's prolonged the war. The families here that are waiting for their loved ones to come home from Hamas terror dungeons, they know that it's the media's fault, and that's sick.
How do you explain this? Not only the New York Times, but many other media that run with pictures like this or reports like this.
I understand that they want to sell newspapers and they want to get clicks on their website. That's how it works. It's a business nowadays. Even media outlets that are known for being relatively pro-Israel, they ran these pictures because that's what grips at your heart. You know, in the end, we're all humans. You see a sick child, you can't help but want to find out what caused this child to be sick. And that's why media outlets need to do their homework. And the New York Times and others did not.
Final question, Gil. What's the bottom line, and what are you trying to do through Honest Reporting?
We need people to be aware that there's going to be a decision made around the world soon. This war on the military battlefield is ending, please God, very soon. But the war on the media battlefield, the narrative war, is going to be continuing. And people are going to be deciding, did Israel in this war become an international pariah, or did it save the world from an Islamic fundamentalist nuclear bomb? The contrast is that stark. We need Christians who are watching this show to tell their friends the truth about Israel making the world a better place. Share what you see on social media of Honest Reporting, or go to honestreporting.com so people will know the truth, and you can pass it on with your social media. That will go a long way because people see their friends as sources of information, And before you know it, your likers of your likers and your friends of your friends will know the truth.
Yeah. Well, Gil Hoffman, thanks for joining us and for the great work you do there at honestreporting.com.
My pleasure, Chris.
When we come back, meeting practical needs in Tel Aviv, CBN Israel partnering with the International Christian Fellowship. If you had the power to help people in a practical way, what would you do? One woman dreamed of a stress-free shopping experience that would honor its customers who need food or clothing. Thanks to our generous partners, CBN Israel is working with the group to make it happen. Nicole Yansazyan has the story.
In the heart of Tel Aviv, CBN Israel has partnered with a congregation that is serving the community by providing shelter during the war and running a store for groceries, clothes, and essentials free of charge for people in need.
And I'm here with Natasha Majuga, and we're on the premises of the International Christian Fellowship. You have an organization here, and you said this was your dream.
16 years ago, we moved with the small kids, 4 luggage bags, nothing else, no money. We moved to build a church for young generation, especially here in Tel Aviv. The kids are growing fast. You need to change clothes, in need of everything.
Natasha's personal journey fuels her current passion for helping those in need.
We actually have a lady, she's 82 and her husband is in a wheelchair. And she said this is the only food she can get. It's here for free. That's why we always open and we have a nice music in the store. It smells good. We create the atmosphere of rest. People can come and just relax. We treat them with the coffee, with the tea, with some sweets. This is our mission, that the people in the crisis never felt that they value less, no matter how big the crisis in their life, that they're still precious in our eyes, in God's eyes. It was my crazy dream that I can come and do my shopping and pay zero money. Just experience that, and the people can experience who maybe have the same issue, the same situation.
This was your dream, and you've made it come true. Yeah. What a selfless dream. It's amazing. I want to see your shop. I haven't seen it yet.
Let's go.
Okay.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Before this war, we covered 650 families. For just the last week, we have 50 more families. So it's just growing and growing. Sometimes people come and we don't have enough, and it's always break our hearts. So thank you so much for CBN that for now we have enough to give people, and especially now when the people in the line 3 hours before we open the store. CBN actually provide us to bring people help in such a time as this. It's stressful enough already, and we see how people desperate for this. It really help us be sure that we can cover people, and they won't be struggle, and they won't be hungry, or even more stressful that they have not enough for their families. So it's really a relief to us and a huge help.
Well, that's a wonderful story of CBN partners helping a ministry reach out to people in need in Tel Aviv. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and you can also access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. And don't forget to sign up for our email blasts so you can continue to receive CBN content. And please keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and for God to thwart the plans of evil men, that His justice would come forth in Israel and the surrounding countries, and that all the hostages would come home safely and soon. As it says in Psalm 46, verses 10 and 11, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted over the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." I'm Chris Mitchell. For all of us here at the Jerusalem Bureau, we'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.